What the fuck is up, you guys? Welcome back to Open Dialogue. I'm so excited about today's episode. We have an insanely special guest joining us, and we will get into that later in the episode. As always, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, you can always follow us on all of our socials, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at opendialogue.pod. Communicate with us there. Submit any of your letters for advice or anything you want to hear on the podcast to any of those channels. And without further ado, let's get into our interview. Thank you for listening to Open Dialogue. I am so excited. As you can see, I have a beautiful face here with me. We have our first official guest on Open Dialogue. She is a model, content creator, total it girl in all capacities. She's worked with such amazing brands. She's signed to some of the biggest modeling agencies literally in the world. Yeah. And I'm lucky enough to know her from high school. We'll get into that. The beautiful, amazing EMILY CARO.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
This. I know. I'm glad. You are the first guest. So first question. What made you even want to come on?
Just because, why not? It's something that you're passionate about, so why not see what's up, see what's going on?
I know. I knew you'd bring the good vibes, so I was like, she would be a perfect first guest to even have the Sagittarius energy in you. You're always so kind and supportive, so I was like, she's going to be the perfect one. And of course, you're booming, you're always popping. So let's even first talk about how we know each other. So you and I went to high school together. What do you remember about the high school time?
Oh my gosh. I went to several high schools, so they start to blur into one, but I remember it wasn't the drama class. I remember a lot of that. It was just such a fun class. It was an easy class, and it was just always a good time to be in there.
It was. That's actually so true. I didn't know you went to that many high schools. That's crazy.
Four high schools.
So you went to a new one every single year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Where was the first high school that you went to?
The first high school was just before Niceville. So I was my dad was stationed in Japan, so I went to freshman year in Japan, and then Niceville, and then two high schools in Virginia. They were just a short distance apart, but I ended up transferring to a new high school. But
wait, Virginia is so different from Florida. How was your experience at each of them? Which one did you like the most?
Niceville was the biggest, so that was a lot. It was overwhelming, especially because the one in Japan was so small, since it was just for the kids that were military kids. I think the graduating class was 30 people.
Wait, the fact that you think Niceville was a big school is crazy to me, because I feel like it's so small compared to other schools in Florida.
It was so massive to me. But Japan was my favorite just because it was so small, and I felt like I got to know every single person. But that is one of my favorite ones.
Oh, amazing. That's kind of crazy. I really didn't realize that you went to that many. I went and obviously graduated from Niceville, but I feel like even there, you do see so many faces, so many different people, because it's kind of like a military brat community, if you will. I remember it distinctly being either it was military brat vibes and it was just a churn, or it was we literally went to school together from kindergarten until graduating. There was a distinction between the different groups of people within that capacity. So that's freaking crazy to even think about. When you moved from, I guess, Virginia, how long did you stay there after you graduated? What was your first move after that?
I graduated from there, and then I took a gap year just because I really didn't know if modeling was gonna take off, or if that's really what I wanted to give all of me to. And then my parents, of course, they were like, we support you, but what's your backup plan?
As every parent, if this doesn't work out, where are you gonna go? What are you gonna do?
So I took 6 months of having no idea, and then my mom mentioned cosmetology school, and she was like, what about that? You're getting into doing your hair and your makeup. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Sure, why not? And so I went to the Aveda Institute in DC and did cosmetology school there for, I think, my school year was a year and a half. It was extensive. It was.
How did you like that? I feel like that'd be interesting, fun to learn about. Of course, I'm thinking of it in probably the best light, where it's you just get to play with hair and makeup every day, and not anything actually educational, to where it's probably much harder than I'm assuming. But I'm I would love to do my makeup every day and just have fun doing that.
The first part of it was really, it was school. You're in a classroom, it's textbook, you're not touching anyone's hair, you don't even have a mannequin's hair yet, you're just reading, learning terminology, and then the middle part of it is probably the most fun, because you do have a mannequin's head and you get to cut and color and just kind of
everything you ever wanted.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then it gets a little scary again because then the institute in DC actually filters in real people. It's like a discounted haircut or hair service, like
Okay.
significantly discounted, but they have to sign waivers because they know
Because you're
you're a
students.
student.
So it's like if anything happens,
Exactly. You
y'all
can't
can't
sue
come for us.
anybody.
Yeah.
But that was a little
Exactly.
nerve-wracking because like you're really interacting with people and trying to give them, something that makes
How
them feel
cool.
better about themselves or makes them feel more
Yeah.
beautiful. And so like you're now really in charge of that and you want to do a good job. And you're being graded
Yes.
on it too. So it's like
One little mix of bleach too much and you're like, oh my God.
exactly. So
Sorry, I fucked you up.
that part was a little scary, but then you would like go through levels within that, kind of like your senior year of it.
Yeah.
You would go through levels of
How
it.
many years is the
It's
school?
just
Like,
a
is
year
it
and a
like
half. It's just a year and a half, but you
okay.
have like a certain amount of months in each section, which is why it kind of feels like grades. Like when you're in the classroom the whole time, you kind of feel like you're a freshman, have no idea what's going on. You see everyone out there. It looks like they know exactly what they're doing. It looks like a full-fledged salon. But then when you start moving through the process, you're like, oh, this is a little more easy. Like, look at those people stuck in the classroom. Like, it kind of feels.
Yeah, we made it to the next level. You can see who's doing shitty work and who's doing the good work because they're progressing.
Exactly.
So you knew kind of earlier on then, at least from maybe high school age, that you wanted to model and that's something that you wanted to do. Like, you've always been gorgeous. Like, let's state that for the record. She's always been like stunning, very beautiful, very tall and just like statuesque. So I could not surprised in the slightest if that's what you ended up doing. Did you know that, like, even when you were at Niceville, or just as you progressed, I guess, kind of going to high school in Virginia, you understood that's what I see myself doing?
I saw my first, like, on television, my first Victoria's Secret show, and that's when I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that would be, I think that was my freshman year. So that's whenever I really took an interest in it and started wanting to take more pictures of myself, kind of getting more into what I look like and how I photograph and stuff like that. But I wasn't too deep into it because I really wanted to be a singer. So like, that's
okay, I love that.
Where my energy was.
Why not do both? I know.
So bad at singing. It's not good at all. So my parents very lovingly told me,
we're like, maybe this is not the one you pursue. The two. Why is that me? I'm like, I want to be a triple threat. And I'm like, okay, wait, I'm horrible at dancing. Like, let me figure out what the third thing will be. That's actually pretty iconic. So you knew actually earlier on then, you were like, I want to model. You started to just take pictures. Did you start using social media? Like, what was the route that you were like, this is how I'm going to model? Or because some people, it happens so happenstance and they're like, I was at the mall and somebody, scouted me and that's how it happened. Some people use social media. So what was kind of your roadmap?
I just casually would take pictures with friends, stuff like that, up until my senior year. And then senior year, maybe junior year. Anyways, in Virginia, I had a fashion design teacher, and her name was Miss Francois, and she was...
Shout out to you, Miss Francois. She's like never going to listen.
She was amazing. I love her so much. Still to this day, I keep in touch with her. But in DC, she like was one of the either directors or casting directors for Crystal Couture Fashion Week in Washington, D.C. So it was our first day, and she had asked everybody, okay, so why'd you take my class? Because it was an elective, and she pretty much wanted to know why we were there and what our dreams and goals were. And a lot of people, it was a fashion design class, so everyone was like, oh, I want to go to FITM or AI, like I want to be a designer or a stylist or whatever. And I was like, well, I want to be a model. And she took an interest in that and kind of reeled me into the Crystal Couture world and all of that. And that was my first time like walking in runways, and then from there talking with photographers and meeting photographers outside of like school and work and building my book that way. And then from there, I was able to, I was not scouted. I had to.
You're like, I put in blood and sweat.
I grinded out. I was like, you're going to see my face. You're going to look at me. You're going to make sure that if you see me, is it a yes or a no? But I'm not going to just be like, oh, maybe I'll just be found. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I would go to like dinner, we'd go to Red Robin with my family for dinner. I was dressed up because I was like, I'm going to be scouted eating a burger.
Who knows? Every piece, like, you never know who's going to be there. They're like, Jenay, this is Walmart. You're like, it doesn't matter. Okay.
It doesn't matter. Every time I leave the house, my dad was like, come on, like, it's not a runway show. And I was just like, never saying anything, but I was like, you don't understand. I know that these models get like they're in the airport and they get scouted, or they're in like a grocery store and they get scouted. Like Walmart, they're gonna scout me at Walmart.
They're gonna scout me there. You're like, you never know. So do you think on some level you genuinely like manifested it because you really prepared in every facet, in every way? Like you were so uncompromising and thinking like, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I'm gonna be. I don't give a fuck how it happens. I don't give a fuck when it's happening. I know it's going to happen for me.
I mean, I do believe in manifestation. At the time, I definitely didn't. I mean, I was going through it too. I was putting myself out there and nothing was happening. There was no traction going on until I was like 20. And so at least 6 years, I wanted to be a model and nothing happened. And then grinding it out for 2, also trying to have this backup plan, get my license in that. Also put in time in a salon. I started working in beauty salons to at least say that I worked in one in case modeling took off. And then for some reason something happened and I had to go back. I could at least say that I worked in the salon. I know how it operates. I mean, I had my fair share of like shut out and
well, that was going to be my next question is how many no's, not quantifiably, but just for how long do you feel like you heard like no, no, no before you kind of got like that golden ticket opportunity? Because girl, you work with brands, you work with like some big players now. So you definitely, I mean, some people are privileged enough to just get like, bam, here's a huge campaign, you know, here it is, and their career takes off. But you really were in the trenches and you really grinded. So for how long, I guess, how many no's, how many times did you put yourself out there before you were like, holy shit, I'm getting Pretty Little Thing, I'm getting Skims, I'm getting like huge names to recognize me?
I would say for 2 full years, no is all I heard. And I was putting at the time it wasn't Instagram driven. It was more like you would go to the modeling websites, which they still have now, and you can submit yourself. It was every month. I would like to the same ones. I would not change it up. And it was all over the world. I would send them to Milan. I would send them everywhere to the small.
For 2 years.
Yes, for
that
2
is
full
crazy.
years. 2 full years.
But that's diligence. Like, truthfully, I think people need to hear that. A lot of times, especially in today's day and age, it's like, I can get on social media, I'll post consistently or whatever, and it's going to happen for me. Like, I'm just going to manifest into whatever it's meant to be, and they get so frustrated that in a month they haven't landed a huge deal or, you know, gotten the collaboration that they necessarily want. So I think it's important to reiterate, like, babe, yes, we live in a digital world, but there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that want to be in your exact positioning that will do just like you, you know, grind for 2 years straight, even after hearing no after no after no. So that's pretty insane. Do you remember your first photo shoot? Like it was yesterday. Like, do you remember the first kind of big one that you were like, they said yes? Like, oh my God, I'm going to do it. Which one was it?
Well, I had just got signed to my mother agent. And,
what is a mother agent? I'm like, wait, what's the lingo?
So the mother agent is kind of like your mothership. Like that's the one that found me in a way, even though I sent all of my stuff to her and to others. I actually, side note, for her, I had just happened to, I mean, it was during that 2 years of being told no. And I was going through my junk mail and I was just like typed in model submissions just to see if any like I missed. And a year before, she had emailed me, like, I'd love to meet you and to sign you. And so I was like...
You're like, wait, what was this one?
Right.
Yeah, literally.
Could be a year deep in here already, and well, we're not. But I had messaged her, and then she immediately brought me in, immediately signed, and had a whole game plan. Cut to my first job was only a month after signing with her. And it was in Virginia, and the magazine was called Distinction. And they wanted me to be the cover model for it. So I got to go down to Richmond and work with a wonderful team and had gowns. It was like Oscar de la Renta. It was my first time, like, really.
I'd be like, oh my God, are you sure you want me to wear
this? Okay.
$10,000 couture piece? Thank you.
We were on location. We were like in this botanical garden. It was amazing. It was an insane experience. The stylist room had bags and shoes. It was like everything I wanted to do, and I did not get paid very much for it, but I was like, this is amazing. Like you're
kind of like the opportunity is like the payment. At that point you're like, I'm just happy that I was the one chosen to do this. And I read even Emily Ratajkowski's book, My Body. Love her book. But she talks about that a lot in the book, that she was like, so much of the work that I did for like years and years was like they would give me clothes for it, or I would barely get paid like a livable wage, and it looks so glamorous because I'm wearing like fabulous things, or I'm shooting for fabulous brands. So that was going to be kind of my next question, was like, did you get paid, at least in the early onset years, a real like livable good wage, or was it more of kind of like you're saying this collaboration where you're like, bitch, I was just happy to be on that cover, I was happy to be wearing the dress, and I kind of got my little magazine out of it, and that's what it was?
Oh, for sure. It was, I mean, when you're starting out, it's just like in any business, you're going to start with the lowest pay possible. As you build your book, it's building your clients, it's being able to say who you've worked with. That builds to how much you're getting paid as well. Your agents negotiate your pay too. So not only having a good relationship with them, but also having driven agents as well. People that want to see you succeed. If I win, they win. So they're going to do all they can.
Have you worked with the same agent your entire career, or have you had like turnover in agents? I don't know if, I mean, clearly never had an agent. So what is that relationship like? Is it kind of like you said, you have your mother agent and you stick with her, and then there's maybe a team of other agents you work with too that maybe has a little bit more turnover, or what is kind of like the totality of the relationship?
So for every agency I think I have 5.
Oh, wow.
I think 5. I have one go-to agent at each of those places. So my mother agent, I don't necessarily book a lot through her, only because she's based in Virginia. However, I've been with her since the very beginning. I have never changed with her. And her reach, how many people she knows, the clients she has, was another driving reason I wanted to sign with her. And then obviously her belief in me and what she said she thought I would be capable of really made me feel like she believed in what I wanted for myself. So stayed with her the whole time. Her reach is what got me the other agents. So it went from her, and then I got signed in LA. That LA agency I was with, I switched with, but I followed my agent from there. And I've been with her ever since too. They were only maybe 6 months apart. So in the 5 or 6 years that I've been professionally doing this, I've been with those 2 the whole time.
Consistently. Yeah. We love a loyal queen. We love the loyalty. I feel like I'd be the same way. And we'll kind of talk about how it's different in like the different places you've modeled, because you've lived in a lot of places. You've honestly been able to model kind of all over. Which market would you say was your most desirable, or where you were like, this is it? Like, I loved this market versus another.
I mean, I work the most in LA, and I mean, I lived there for 4 years, or almost 4 years on and off. So it got old to me. So whenever I go, I'm like, okay, getting in and out. I loved New York. I lived there all of last year. And although when you start in a new market, it's like a slow start. I'm learning all the clients for the first time. They're seeing me for the first time. They have their girls they're loyal to. So trying to filter in a new face is one of a lot, because there's so many stunning women, especially in New York, for like the client list that they have there. So for me to kind of like finesse my way in there was a little difficult, but although it was a successful year, I would love for it to be as busy as LA is all the time, but I do love the environment in New York, above all, like London or any place like that.
Me too. New York is so infectious. I think I would probably feel the same if I was like within the same shoes. Yeah. Do you have any conceptions or things that I guess before you got into professional modeling, and now that you've been in it, like you said, for years, excuse me, my voice just like got really wild there, for years, do you have anything that you're like, oh shit, I had no idea that this was like a part of the job, or that I was getting myself into this piece? Or do you feel like you went into it kind of pretty like knowledgeable and understanding like, oh, I know exactly what this is going to be? Was there anything that surprised you after being a professional model?
I have always been a pretty mentally tough person. Not a lot affects me, but 2 years of being told no consistently, and then of course I'm still told no with certain jobs and clients that I want to work with. Sometimes it just doesn't pan out, or I'm not what they're looking for that campaign. So still being told no, but especially in the beginning, being told that many times no, that consistently, while still being like, but I believe in me. Why does no one else think that I could work with them?
Yes, definitely.
The mental.
You're like, why not me?
What's wrong with me?
Seriously, being a Libra, I'm like, no, if you don't like me, I'm just like, why do you not like me? Like, what's wrong with you? I don't have a thick enough skin to model in the slightest. So I feel like one person would be like, I just don't think you're right for this. Like, next. And I'd be like, what?
That was it. It was like the thick skin. I really was not prepared for how thick of skin you really have to have. And I would live in like model apartments or whatever and talk to the other girls. I mean, you see them break down, you see them cry. There's a constant comparison, especially if you look similar. Because when you're walking into a casting room, I'm walking into a room typically with a bunch of other beautiful brown women, curly hair, light eyes. And so you're just sitting there for an hour sometimes, just like her hair is fuller than mine, or her hair is more pretty than mine, or her skin has no blemishes, or her eyes are lighter than mine. Like, it's a constant comparison at that time. So I definitely wasn't prepared going through that. I mean, and then on top of that, how young I was at the time as well, and how girls are even younger going through that. That was probably the biggest thing I was not prepared for.
And even when it comes to your age, like you said, and kind of, I think the comparison thing is so real, especially now within social media. Everybody compares themselves. Like, I think it's almost inevitable just in our day and age, because it's crazy to me, even at like my 8-year-old niece is talking about how her classmates have blonde hair and I want to look like this, or I want to be like that. And I'm like, why can we not shield you from social media? But it's kind of something as a woman that we always have to fight against. I don't think men have to deal with a fraction of it whenever they're comparing themselves to other people. When it comes to being a model specifically, how do you feel like that affected you kind of growing up and understanding your body and your own confidence? Like, what effect do you think that had on you, since you are seeing so many beautiful women who could be younger, more thin, more just whatever piece that you're kind of comparing, like you said?
I mean, I had a really hard time. I definitely don't struggle with that nearly as much now. Most of my insecurities were, why am I being told no if we look so similar? Like, what's the difference? What is really, what is so different that she got a yes and that I got a no?
Do they ever explain it to you? Like, I'm thinking in a casting, of course, I watched America's Next Top Model or things like that, and I feel like they are just like flipping the photo, and it's like, if you're flipped, you need to get the fuck out, you know what I mean? There's no sitting with you holding your hand like, I'm sorry, baby, we're just not going to pick you this time.
You just never hear from them, which kind of sucks. Wow. Because it kind of feels like you're getting ghosted, like by a boy or something.
I know.
Why aren't you talking to me? And then like you want to check in with your agent and be like, so did I book that? Did I not?
They're like, no, bitch, no one's like, calling for you.
Babe, nobody called for you. Sorry. And I'll do that still sometimes if it's like a really big client and I'm really excited about it, and I try not to do that. Like, get myself excited, because I remember how it felt getting excited for every single yes, and then it being like, no, just kidding, we're actually gonna go this direction. So.
That's almost evil. You're like, stop, how could you do
exactly
this?
It was
exactly. I mean, so you lived in these model apartments, which I'm also so curious about, because I again read that, and even Emily Ratajkowski's book, how she would live like that, and I'm like, it's just curious to me, one, of course, the competition that you feel, but did you ever feel like there's a vibe of like bitchiness?
Oh, 100%.
Because I mean, it gives me sorority vibes, but it's like the most fucking beautiful women also. It's not only like you're just like little prim white girls. It's like, no, these bitches are like all hot, all want the same thing. You're all possibly going for, you know, similar jobs or even the same jobs. Was it really catty, or do you feel like you had some like genuine, nice connections, good friends out of it as well?
It was definitely catty. Different places kind of had that. So the first model apartment I ever was in, the biggest drama house I think I've ever experienced with women.
Like, could have been a TV show. It was like Bad Girls
so
Club.
Bad. It was so bad. But I think what you said, like, we are seeing each other come in and out. We're hearing, I work tomorrow. I have a couple jobs this week. And she just got here a week ago. Meanwhile, you've been there for 2 months and you've only had one job. So, like, it can feel like, what is happening? Why am I not getting booked these jobs? You really put it on yourself. And then I don't think I have any close friends with any of the girls that I mean, friendly, yes, but we lived together, so it's like
cordial. Like, you're like, I can't.
Cordial, but it's just like we lived with one another, and for me, I'm not like most cleanly person at all times, but
that's the Sagittarius in you. Yeah.
The like common spaces, it just, you're coming from girls that are coming from all over the world, not just in your hometown or whatever. So there's different ways of living with everyone and priorities and what to keep clean and what not to. Age differences and maturity. So you're dealing with people that you feel like you have to either mother or be a big sister to or whatever it may be. And it can be really stressful to live with a bunch of random people. And then you're also trusting your personal things in their space. So arguments could happen about theft or where is this, or you borrowed this, or you broke this.
Did you ever had anything stolen from you, or anything you were like, this bitch took my stuff?
I have not had anything stolen from me, no. Girls definitely tried it with me as far as attitudes go, but I wouldn't.
That's how you knew you were pretty, though. You're like, yeah, you're trying it because you're mad. You're trying it because you're mad. And that's okay.
But no, like I'm not one to, like, we live together. I'm not about to sit here and have an argument with you from whatever you're projecting.
And make it weird. Yeah. I agree. I am the same way, especially within my house. Like I'm a pretty extroverted person, I would say. However, I like my house to be my sanctuary. Yeah. So I love living alone. Like I love, even like now my boyfriend and I live together. We live very well together. I love those pieces. But it would be really difficult for me to live in almost like a house, like you said, where it's kind of an influx and an outflux of people, different personalities, different ways of living. So I can only imagine kind of the mental toll almost that would take on you to a certain degree. And then also having a job that's like highly competitive, highly, dynamic. Like you said, 2 months I could not be working. 1 month I could have fucking 10 jobs and I'm booked and busy. Do you think that not only living in the house, but of course your job in itself just takes a toll naturally on your mental health because of the type of job it is?
Sure. Just the whole structure of the system will absolutely make you question things about yourself, and that's where like working on yourself and really knowing who you are is absolutely key. Like if there were something I could go back and talk to my younger self as she started this process, that would be my biggest thing, is that you're gonna see beautiful women, just they're beautiful, but you are too. You know who you are as a person. You don't know who they are as people, but get to know them or whatever it may be. But to not put any of that pressure on myself the way that you naturally do, especially when you're starting in this industry, because it's rough.
Oh my gosh, I could literally only imagine. That's also great advice. Mm-hmm. It's like, know thyself, like know yourself, know who you are. Stick to those core things. That's something I preach to myself all the time. Is like being able to always look in that mirror and say like, I am valuable. Mm-hmm. That doesn't take away their value or their beauty or them being articulate, whatever, any piece of that. Do you think as a woman of color, obviously we're both mixed girlies, it was harder for you to break into this industry? Did you see a lot of diversity? I mean, again, you've worked with really top level brands. Did you see a lot of other people that looked like us, or was it like still very common, okay, I'm fighting, scraping, clawing for these pieces, or excuse me, these spots, because it's still predominantly, a white industry?
Before the BLM movement, absolutely difficult for someone that looks like myself to snag a spot and it not be brutal to get. Yeah. But after the movement, some of it was shady because people just wanted to claim that their brand was woke, and then some of it was genuine. Some clients had already been doing stuff like that, so they maintained theirs. I'm not sure if it's because of the client list that I've built or if it is because it's more diverse. But I know as far as bodies go, body types, I've seen, especially now, there's so much more inclusivity with that. As far as skin color, there were times that I felt like I was the token in there to be like, oh, she's racially ambiguous, but I'm the only one there. And I'm like, but I know that there are beautiful, dark women with a completely different hair pattern that when they're looking at this billboard or this magazine or scrolling through whatever website, they're not resonating with anybody there. They don't see their skin complexion against that shirt or whatever. Exactly. And so I felt kind of bad because I don't want to just be the token. I want to be picked because I fit this and I can do this well, and because I'm good at my job. But then on top of that, to know that I am taking another woman's spot that could resonate to a lot of women as well, that girls that look like me could look at her and be like, okay, a darker
Yeah.
woman, we still can resonate that way, but I don't think it translates on the opposite side because of whatever
I
reason.
totally
But now I see it a little bit more, but I'm not sure if it's because of the brands that I work with that are just inclusive or if it's a woke thing. I'm not sure, but I do see it a little bit more since the movement. Before then, absolutely not.
I agree. And I do think there is almost an air of like color privilege there,
Yeah.
being fair skinned, being, lighter eyed, or having, like you said, more of like a coil curl versus like extremely kinky, curly hair. It does give you a little bit more of preference or privilege within the industry because it would be extremely harder, like you said, if you were darker skinned or if you did have a different texture of hair, which is sad to see, and I'm glad it's something that you're kind of advocating, like, hey, it is changing. Of course, like you said, whether it's because of after BLM, people were like, oh shit, we can no longer, just cast blonde hair, blue-eyed white women. We need to start actually adding diversity. Or they're brands that have had reputations of doing that. I think either way, it's like good. And people are kind of socially, checking them. Like, get your shit together. We don't want to buy shit from you if you're just going to have people that don't even represent our, ethnicities at all within this. When it comes to brands that you've worked with, have you ever turned down a job because of like inclusivity or lack of diversity? I'm sure you've turned down jobs before just for other reasons too, but has it ever played a part within that kind of space at all?
No, I've never turned down a job because of a brand, I guess, beliefs or whatever their
kind of standing for.
Whatever their thing is. I'm not associating with them because I agree. I'm associating with them because they're cutting me a check. And I move right on.
It's all about the
I move
dollars.
right on. Like, I am a person that grinds it out, and I've worked really hard for this. So as long as, like, if we're on set though, and people are saying things, or I've absolutely checked people on set, I've absolutely let my agents know I will not work with them again because of how they've talked about either my body or another girl's body on set, or made comments about hair or inappropriate conversations or talking about any political thing that doesn't resonate with me or that just shouldn't be talked about. I absolutely will check it in the moment or make mention so that my agents can either check them on their own time or can let other girls know, hey, we've heard this about them. Do you still want to proceed? Because a lot of girls don't speak up because we don't really have a voice. We're there to be pretty and to just be a hanger.
Which is so wild. Yeah. I keep referencing Emily Ratajkowski's book, but it's my most recent read, and it was also so good. So good. And again, she really resonates with so much of what you say because she was like, in so many ways, I put up with a lot of bullshit that now, at being 28 years old, she's like, I would never fucking stand for. But because, like you said, I'm paid to be a hanger, a pretty face, like not speak. And it really even betrayed a lot of her own boundaries internally. Like you said, of people speaking about her body or other people's bodies or just making really, like from, male figures making really inappropriate comments around her. Do you feel like on specific sets, or I guess I'll say in the majority of sets you work with, do you feel like most of them go out of their way to make you feel comfortable? Or do you still feel like there's a pretty big majority that are like that because the modeling industry is so kind of cutthroat and direct that they feel that level of comfortability to be like, this looks off, stop fucking eating, like, this is what it is. Like, I don't mean to be brazen as well, guys. Like, I'm not promoting anything crazy. I want to say that. But I'm saying from her book, she really articulated that even today, even though she doesn't model as much now, she's an author, she does other things. She was like, I don't think it would be shocking to still understand that a lot of that stuff goes on. A lot of directors or people behind the scenes, PAs, will make little comments or will say things to you and not even think twice about it, which blew my mind. I'm like, that's kind of crazy that like these fucking strangers would say that. But she's like, because you're getting a check and you're not there for your personality or anything, they really don't care. Like they're kind of like, and if you do say something, it's very much the tone of, well, you're replaceable. Like if you don't like it, get the fuck out and we'll get somebody else to be you, essentially.
I mean, same kind of thing. Like before the movement, that was what was happening. There would be comments, there would be things going on set that were just so like logic, they just didn't make sense for you to say or to do or any of that. But after the movement, I mean, the movement gave me a lot more confidence in being a woman of color and speaking up about things when they do happen on set, especially because I know that with that movement, I was now being included a little bit more, and that the girls that were darker than me still felt like they couldn't say much because they were fighting for that possible chance that they would pick a darker skinned girl. So I was like, okay, well, it's kind of my responsibility to speak up more. If they're saying things that pertain to me, I can only imagine the little comments that they would say to my friends. So since then, there's been a lot less of that. Every set that I've worked on since has made me feel very comfortable and has been very kind, and it's very casual conversation. It's not anything insane. You build relationships, so you do get to know people. Obviously, the more I work with like makeup artists and hairstylists, they're in my face the whole time. So like we make conversation.
And for like hours.
So we
That's
make
so fun,
conversation and we talk to one another and we get to know each other's personalities. So new topics do become on the table. But as far as directors and whatnot, if they have any comments or anything, they're away from the models when they're talking about what they want their vision to be or how things are being executed or what is working and what isn't working. They've changed their language to express if the clothing isn't fitting correctly, maybe we should just get her in a different dress rather than being like, she's looking X, Y, and Z in this. No, don't like it. It would be too much to edit. Instead of that language, it's just like, let's put her in something different, same color though. Like stuff like that. Just
they're like, how it should be.
Right.
Exactly. Which is how it should be. It's not you fitting into the clothes, you know, fitting on you correctly. I completely agree. So you've worked with notable brands, as we've said, and honestly, many. I feel like your portfolio is probably insane, even outside of the ones that I listed. Do you have a favorite kind of photo shoot or brand to work with out of those really larger scale ones?
I mean, I love my consistent ones. Just, I mean, obviously they pay for things, but they cut me that check. It's the environment being on set with them too. I mean, I absolutely love working with SKIMS. They are one of my favorites. They're always so kind. What really gets me with photo shoots is the food that they have on set.
I love it. Wait, that was my next question. What is Kim catering? What is KKW catering?
They have the most amazing just spread of food every time, snacks all the time. It's just, that's what really I think gets a lot of models on sets. Like to say it's one of our favorites is if the food on set is really good. And then recently I've been loving working with OVO, like Drake's brand.
My question, have you met Drake? The biggest question that everyone wants to know. They're like, did you meet Poppy Champagne?
I met him? No, I haven't. He's way too busy to be on those sets.
No, I know, right? He had his birthday party at like Sexy Fish here in Miami, and I live in Brickell, so it's right down the street. And I'm like scrolling on TikTok, and I see this girl that lives here in Miami that I follow, and she's like, I'm getting ready for a birthday party. Doesn't say who it is, whatever. Then the next video is like a Daily Mail video of her going in, and I'm like, is this down the street? Did she go to Drake's birthday? Like, holy shit. You never know. But I was like, let me ask Kelly if she got to meet the Poppy himself.
He's not there.
But they were kind.
But they're so kind. It's just so relaxed and you don't feel uncomfortable. One of the biggest things for me, especially since a lot of my modeling started out with swim and lingerie, I'm very comfortable being naked. I'm very comfortable with random people around, which is not
with
the best.
People in there.
It's not the best thing.
She's not a porn star, guys. Do not get any ideas. Enough, exactly.
But I'm very comfortable with that around anyone, and so it's not the best, but it was hard for me to realize that transitioning a lot into being clothed for shoots and then like beauty brands and whatnot, that some of the things that happened a lot earlier on in my career with the lingerie and swim was that, you know, they're picking my wedgie for me and they're untying and tying tops on, and like they're very invasive into my body, which
they're like putting the oil in your butt cheeks, and you're like, oh, okay,
all up in the crevices. And to me, especially that young, I just thought that's how it was. I thought that was normal. And not that it's not, because they still oil you up and they still lotion you down, but they'll ask you, do you want to, you know, get close to your bikini bits? And I'm like, yeah. And so like, I'll do what I gotta do.
I'm good.
But before then, they would just like oil and go up in your shit. And so it's like, okay. But now the brands that I was talking about, they are just like, they'll have a room for you. And that seems like that should be how it is, but that's not how it always was. They would just hold up a towel, or they would have like one of those little, I don't remember what they're called, but like for lighting purposes, they'll just like unfold it and then have you go behind there. But there's male models in the room. Almost all of the camera crew is men. And I'm just changing behind this like little curtain.
You're like, here's my purse.
Right.
Yeah, literally.
Everything's out. Like, please don't move any of this stuff or walk by. You're gonna see everything. And it's not like that. You have a room, you have a space, and if there's a male on the set, they'll ask the men to move to the other side of the set, even if it makes it a little more difficult, or if they're setting stuff up, a lot more respectful.
Which is crazy that would even be the conversation. Right. Like the fact that we're like, sorry, this makes it difficult. No, like I should be able to not change in front of fucking strangers. Yeah, like, excuse me, can you please just go into this like other area, please? Yeah. And it's wild. I think that's why these social issues that have like really been put on blast, and one of the most powerful things about social media is those pieces where it's like it does incite good change that's really fucking needed. And if we don't speak out, I'm a huge believer, actually this is so funny, my boyfriend and I were talking about this yesterday, in not being neutral. Like, I don't fucking believe in neutrality. I think you need to stand on what you said, have an opinion about maybe everything. Maybe I'm too opinionated. That's like my Aries moon. I'm like, I actually do have something to say. So I'm glad you brought this up. But I do believe in that. And I think that it's important as a society that we do rally around these things, because that's how change actually happens. And even if it's micro changes, like you not having to change behind a fucking towel, but actually getting some damn respect, and you're like, okay, I'm going to step into this area for a minute. Like, it is really important. So I'm glad that it is at least kind of migrating to that, and you're seeing it within your day to day. I'm also glad that these brands have really followed suit and made more comfortable kind of moments. I know that we've talked about the good within the modeling industry and the brands you've worked with, and you don't have to name a brand if you don't feel comfy. Do you have a brand that you're like, oh, I would never fucking work with them again? Like, it just was not your cup of tea. I know you're about to check, but is there anyone that's really rubbed you that wrong of a way? Hopefully not.
There's only one. And I had told my agent, well, actually, I didn't tell her about it. That's how it made me so uncomfortable. I just wanted to get away and not talk about it. And it was because on set they had like made comments about my body. I was in a bikini, and they were just like, I heard rolls, and then like it's pudging out, like stuff like that, and more was said. And I don't
even know what I would be able to say. You'd be like, immediately tears.
And I don't model plus, and even if I did, that would never be okay to say.
Precisely.
And so I was just like, I'm so confused as to what's happening. And I went the rest of the day feeling so uncomfortable and just not myself. And it wasn't until they asked for me again, which I was shocked that they did, that I had told my agent, I was like, I'm actually not comfortable with this, because they booked me. Like, I wasn't asked, because I was already in town, and I had told my agents, whatever I am here for, like, just book it and I'll go. And so they're like, okay, here's your schedule tomorrow. Client was the same one, and I was like, I can't do that. And they gave me a little pushback about it. They're like, this is a good reoccurring client to have. They book every week, and I had to explain what happened, and they were like, well, you need to tell us that as soon as it happens, because then we can let other girls know X, Y, and Z. But there was definitely one that I will absolutely never work with again.
I feel like it has to happen that way sometimes. We were just like, absolutely fucking not. You guys tried it. You know what I mean? And especially even if the people we work with behind the scenes, which from what you sound like, it sounds like most of them are nice and cool. I feel like the hairstylist and the makeup artist, I would assume would be pretty lit and fun. Okay. I'm like still wanting to meet Makeup by Ariel or someone and just be like, oh, hello. Like, I feel like you sound so fun.
No, they are. It's always a good time. It's like a little kiki session whenever you're over with hair and makeup. If it's too early in the morning, probably not. But
you're like, don't fucking me. I know. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Do what you got to do. But no, it's always so much fun with the hair and makeup artists. I mean, you're hearing them spill tea about people, and you're just like,
that's the biggest
about
thing.
All of it. I don't know anyone they're talking about, or like nicknames or whatever, and I'm just like here for it.
Do you feel like they talk in code names so that you don't know exactly who it is?
If it's
like obviously,
if it's like a famous person or a well-known creator, then I think they absolutely don't say the name, just in case, because you never know. You don't know who I could be friends with or whatever. So
exactly,
I think they do at times. They'll like mention it, because the hair and makeup artists, especially in LA, it's like they all know each other already. They've already worked with one another at some point. So they'll mention something, be like, do you know who I'm talking about? And then they go on about their tea spilling, and I'm just like hearing about it, not really knowing who it's about. But it's
The
entertaining.
secrets that your hair holds. I need to know.
Full of secrets.
I feel like it would probably be so interesting, even just to be in that world and be a fly on the wall, especially working with brands like associated with the Kardashians. I would love to know the tea around them. But I bet within that realm, they're probably extremely careful. Like Kris Jenner's always listening. She's like, all of you have an NDA, so don't even try it. I don't want to hear code names. I don't want to hear anything like that. Have you ever been able to meet any of the Kardashians working? Because you've worked with Good American, you've worked with SKIMS, like you've kind of worked with all of their brands.
Never have I ever like, hi, I'm Emily. Hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. Like, that's never how it's been. Kim did come to one of the shoots to do her own shoot. So whenever she came in, she like filtered into the makeup room and we had to filter out. And so that was the only glimpse I got.
Like,
but
hey, and you're like, hey. Yeah, I know.
Try and
Well,
get out.
did you think she looked the same as TV? Like, what was your impression? I've heard from somebody else that has actually met her. They were like, she's so much shorter, and she wears a fuck ton of makeup. I was like,
tiny. She is so small. You would think that she's like 5'6", 5'7", maybe, and she is itty bitty. She is so small.
Really? Do you feel like her body was giving BBL? That's the real question.
I mean, like, it was giving curvy. She was giving curves in all the right spots.
That's what I'm saying. I know. I'm like reversing her BBL, and I'm like, you still look fire. You still look snatched, and you're like vegan and doing it all. She definitely does. I mean, all of them do. Out of any of them, who would you want to meet the most? Would it be Kim?
I think Chloe. I feel like 2000s Chloe would have been insane. I would have loved to hang out with her.
Yes,
she was just
that
ruthless.
energy.
But I mean, honestly, I think Kim would be fun to hang out with, or like just have a chat with, or Courtney. I think she's
my least
she's
favorite,
like
so
Courtney's your least favorite. She's kind of like in the same lovey-dovey bubble that I'm in. So I'm like, I'm like, that's
I know. Wait, we're gonna get to that. I don't know why. I think she just. I really don't know what it is. Her and I just know. I'm like, our personalities would not. We're just not kindred like that.
Two Aries queens can't do it.
It's really my Aries moon would be like, okay, bitch, you're so annoying. Kim, we're both Libras.
Right.
I feel like that would be good. But Chloe, I think I would have to be like, it's like one of those talks where you like hold hands and you're like, girl, are you good?
Right.
Like, you've really been.
I
feel like that audio. I know you've been dogged out and embarrassed, and I feel for her. It's not. I genuinely feel so bad for her. So I think I would want to meet her probably first. Also to just be like, you look fucking snatched as well right now. I have to give you all that. But you have had a really crazy year. You got engaged.
Thank you.
Love bubble.
Yes.
You were engaged to an NFL star, an NFL player on the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know. Evan Ingram. Are you going to change your last name?
I am. I'm going to be Emily Ingram. It sounds so nice.
How long have you guys been dating? I know. Wait, back up. How'd you meet? How long have you been dating? All the questions.
We met in 2019. I was living in the model apartment in LA. One of the girls that was my roommate at the time, she athlete girl. She liked the athletes, so she knew.
Do most of the models the athletes?
Well, most of them
all
really
wait, I'm talking to him.
Most of them really like the athletes, just because it's like a similar world. It's athletes, it's the musicians, it's the photographers, it's the whole shebang.
It is a similar world. You're right.
So met her at the model apartment. She like had whereabouts of where the guys were training. He was on the New York Giants at the time, so they all had came to LA to train or whatever, and we just made a girls' night of it. And I was in a relationship at the time, a really, really bad one. So it was really just my just get out of my head. He's probably cheating on me, which he was, but he was probably cheating.
Wait, the tea. Let's start with this. As a fellow girlie who's been cheated on, bitch, I don't wish it on anyone. That shit is painful.
But anyways, went out, just was trying to get my mind off things. And she was flirting up a storm with every guy there. And I was like, you do you, girl. She was single as a Pringle. So I was like, go for it. He was in this group of people. I think she connected with him to be like, oh, where are you at? So that we could just get in somewhere. And then we went to Delilah, which is my favorite place in LA ever. Me and him just chatted for a minute, just talked. And then that was it. Just exchange socials. We all went to lunch a couple times that week, maybe like twice. And then he went back to New York, and I spent another like year or two in LA and was in another relationship, got out of that one, and then January of last year moved to New York.
So it was like serendipitous.
Well,
you were like,
I mean, I had
actually,
there was another girl that I had met just like in passing with others, that she was like a New York athlete fiend. So she was like, she was like, do you know any athletes here? I'm over like the basketball guys. Da, 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 da. I was like, I only know of one that's here. And so I had messaged him like,
stop, you tried
here.
to
So I set her up. Well, I made it a double date because I like sent her profile to him, and I was like, bring a friend, and like, set up just time and place. Me and her will be there. And I felt so bad. Like I helped her pick out her outfit and everything.
Now she's like, fuck you, by
not like
the way,
other, but then we went to the double date, and shit hit the fan because he was like, I'm into you, not her. And
like, why are we setting other people up?
It was a mess. A lot of clarification had to happen. He had to answer a lot of questions because I was very confused as to what was going on. And he was like, I have liked you since I met you, but you were in a relationship, and then you were in another one. You're never in New York. Like, I've been like, I messaged my best friend about you. When you post, like, he'll send me your post, and I'm like, bro, she has a girl or boyfriend, so like I can't do anything about that. And so he's been pining for me for the last like 2 years. And then in March of last year, we became official boyfriend girlfriend. And then in, what was it? It was June or July. It was July of this year that
he knew. He was like, I've been waiting. I've been waiting. He knew this moment was gonna come. How did you know that he was the one? Like, how were you like, okay, wow, probably one, the diligence. You're like, babe, you said have been pining for me for 3 years.
I think that helped for sure. That like he was very much like, I have had you on my radar, and just if the time came, I was going to take my shot. I think that helped to know that when he's set to something, he will go for it, and that he'll fight for it. So that was one thing. But for me to know that like I would say yes if he were to propose was because of the relationships I had came from, the cheating, the domestic violence, just how really rough and traumatizing they were. The fact that I would anticipate those same types of fights, and he just was not that type of person to argue in that same way. Granted, we had some growing pains with each other in the beginning,
as everyone does, but you're completely correct.
It was just because of how like my inner child and my teenage self, the most traumatized parts of me, felt safe enough to like fully be myself, and that he was confident enough in himself to know that like, I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. And I can't explain a more natural and blessed feeling than it just feels like that person. And it just happens in every lifetime and in every universe. Like this happens.
Like, honestly, I will, because that's so true. And I think especially coming from a really, like you said, abusive, toxic, cheating relationships, like it wears you down as a fucking woman in more ways than just physically. I think even learning to trust again, learning to even understand or accept a sense of security again, and not thinking that it's going to be ripped out from underneath you like a carpet. So to meet somebody that really instills that kind of back in you, and I love what you said about really helped heal that inner child piece, because it does fracture you to that level to where you're like that little kid again that's just like, oh my fucking God, I don't feel safe. I feel like I have to guard myself at every way, and that's so unhealthy in a relationship. So I think if anybody's listening to this, like, take heed of that advice for sure, that if you feel unsafe and you really feel scared and just not worthy in a relationship, that is a huge red flag enough to really get the fuck out of it. So not going too much into detail about the past relationships or the previous two, what do you think those telltale signs were that you were like, I need to get the fuck out because this is getting kind of to the point of no return? Like, this is getting really bad and much worse than I thought.
I mean, the one before Evan was only an 8-month relationship. But that one felt like me breaking the cycle, because the one before that was 3 years and the one before that was 2 years. and they were all the same person in a different body. And something that I was working on myself was just like, any pattern that I have to break it, or I believe it will continue to repeat itself in my life until I break it.
Major facts.
And so
Totally
I was just like, for the last one specifically, it was just, if I don't break this pattern, I will forever have to date this same type of person in another pretty face or another nice body. It will be the same person. And I didn't want to keep doing that. But in the relationships, what got me to the point to leave every time, even though obviously any kind of domestic violence, that should have been the first, for sure, done's with that. But I, whatever reason, would go back to that person. I think that, especially in domestic violent relationships, that it's a sick pull that it has on you. For me, I do believe that although I am very blessed in my career, that I was put on this earth to be a mother. So my ultimate thought process was, would I ever want to, one, tell my son or daughter, if they ever ask me, have you and daddy ever had issues like this? Or if I have to look at my daughter in her own relationship, and for whatever reason she's in a domestic violence situation, and her be like, well, you stayed with dad and it worked out. Like, I couldn't handle that I would have to just be like, well, yeah, you're right. Like, I stayed and I got you, so maybe you should stay and you'll get a blessing. Like, I would never want that on my children. So that my unborn, unthought of kids are like
but
my
that's
driving
so
force to have gotten out of those relationships as a final, like, not just for me, not for my own well-being, but
for your future.
I did not want to raise my kids in a home where I felt like, especially before Evan, I felt like I was gonna have to settle for being cheated on. I thought that was just a normal part of relationships at that point. I thought that's just how women were treated. I just thought that that's how I was going to be treated. I thought that's what I deserved, and that it was just normal.
On that, on thinking that that's what you deserve. I think that's the biggest piece in a lot of the times why women stay in these situations. And I'm not speaking blanketed for everybody here. I get that everyone's situation is different. But oftentimes, nor do I think that people that have violence taken out against them, it's like, you do deserve that. I think more often than not, you have a belief, like you said, there's nothing on the other side for me. Or if I go to the other side, it's just going to be more cheating. And I used to have a close friend of mine that would say that, like, every man cheats, because her man at the time was a cheater. And she would always say, like, I believe every man cheats. You know, I don't think any man's loyal, especially in, like you kind of have said, like, career paths like yours in entertainment or in sports or just really high profile people. Because the guy she was dating at the time had been on a television show. And so she was just like, I think that that's the norm. And in my mind, it just made me so sad that I'm like, you will accept that because you believe that. Like, you will now accept that. And she would. Every time he would step out on countless, points, and would just take him back willingly and be like, well, I mean, again, if it's not him, it's going to be somebody else. And that's so painful to, like, see. And even as a woman, accept. And I mean, just personally for my own cheating, I was on the opposite end. I was like, oh, it's never gonna happen to me. Like, these bitches that say are so dumb. Guys, this is like, I've already talked about this on my podcast, but I'm like, and who had the last laugh, y'all? Granted, the person did tell me, like, my boyfriend at the time came to me and was, like, honest about it, which I think helped me digest it. But I definitely was like, oh, I have to make this work. Like, he was honest. And it did instill almost that fear, like you said, that you're like, oh shit, like, everybody, I had to really stop myself from going down that path where I'm like, well, every man fucking cheats. And even if they don't admit it, it's happening. Do you think now that you're dating somebody, of course, who's in athletics, and of course, the stigma where it's like, every athlete's not faithful, blah, blah, blah. Do you ever have a fear that, like, oh shit, this could happen to me again?
Absolutely not. Not with Evan. It's never been something with he and I that and with how many times I have been cheated on, I know the feeling, I know the gut, the signs. I know when the intuition starts to take over. And it's never even been a thought.
Like, fuck the guys that have cheated on you. I'm shocked. I'm like, if you're getting cheated, it's like Beyonce. If you're getting cheated on, there's no help for any of us.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the whole reason I never wanted to date athletes. Like, that was my biggest thing. All of my little girlfriends that were dating athletes, the ones that are either having babies with athletes or are continuing to date athletes, they all still get cheated on. So, like, I know that is something that still happens. As far as my relationship, I think because of Evan's persistence to pursue me and the foundation that we built it off of, where like me and him, we were not physically intimate until we became boyfriend and girlfriend. Like our whole talking phase, we kissies, of course, but we were not physically intimate in any capacity. We would go on dates and we would spend time together, and then that would be that. And we really wanted to set it up that way because we really saw a potential to spend the rest of our life with this person. And not that being friends with benefits or cuddy buddy, not that that's a bad start for anyone, but for ours and for what we wanted and the story we want to tell, it just aligned beautifully for where both of us were at. And so as far as me and him go, there's never been a moment where I've ever thought he's on the road all the time, like he has events he has to go to. Do I trust other women? Absolutely not.
Fuck no. I know. Yeah, we're like, and a resounding fuck no. Women are disgusting. And I honestly will say it'd be the people you think it would never happen to you. Because previously in that relationship, he cheated with a friend of mine. Like all of us worked together. I had photos with this girl. I was like, you and who? Yeah. So I think it's the women as well. And she was also in a relationship. So that's the teen itself. Yeah. So I think more often than not, of course, if he's an untrustworthy man, which like you said, I do believe that it comes down to the personality, not the job or the occupation that he has. Like I feel the exact same way with my boyfriend now. I innately know, and there's always those bullshit people that'll be like, well, you're never going to know, you know, it could happen, and you're like, shut the fuck up. I know because of his personality, like you said, the way he's pursued me, I would literally stake 1,000,000,000% of my life on the fact that he would never. Like, I'm like, he just would never. But there's definitely those guys where if you even have it in your gut, I'm like, run, girls. Like, if you can't confidently answer the question just like you did, to be like, oh, fuck no. Like, I don't have fear about it. Something's off. Something's off. Like something's wrong within that. And I do think even being in the positioning that he's in, like you said, of just cleat chasers, women that want just that little 15 seconds of fame or a picture or whatever, which is so sad. It's like wild to me that that's a thing. I think that would almost freak me out more versus thinking that my man would ever do anything. It's like the lengths that women would go to try to even get anything, you know what I mean, out of him.
I think it helped him a lot too on reassurance for him as a man and for him at, you know, his tax bracket and like what he's got going on that
tax bracket
that I have never been that type of person. I don't have that relationship with any of the athlete males or anything like that. I never had that drive to want to be with someone like that. My drive was career focused. And so that was a big thing for him.
And you have your own. That's such an important piece. You take care of yourself. You have your own established career. You do very well for yourself. So I'm sure, like you said, with him, he was like, that's probably very attractive too.
That gave him a lot of reassurance and like knowing where I'm coming from, that there isn't going to be someone who makes more or a more famous athlete. That's not going to faze me. I'm really here because of who you are to your core. It's not that, well, my job is, it's come and go and I'm not really doing much, or I want to be a stay-at-home wifey, so I need the best setup possible. Like, I have my own. If for any reason anything happened, like I would be okay financially by myself. And I think that makes him feel better about where my morals were coming from, especially in the beginning. Obviously we know each other to a T now.
Very well.
That's not even a question, but I think on an athlete's perspective too, the reason in my mind, and it could be totally wrong, is, you know, they are aware of the girls that come and go just for the 15 seconds with them, or what they can get, or the bag that they can be bought, or the places that they can vacation to,
the little picture they can get.
So if women are doing that to them, why wouldn't this man, you know, find the best setup for him as well? The type of thought process, because that's what a woman like that would be doing, is finding her best setup, who can give her the most luxurious X, Y, and Z.
It's so transactional. Yeah. You find that you're like, wow, it really is predicated on, like you said, transaction. What can I get from you? What can they get from me? And honestly, if you marry for money, you will always be miserable. Like I like hold that to my core. I'm like, if anybody marries for that, you will always be in a situation where it's like just lacking. You know what I mean? Like lacking love. And maybe you can grow to love somebody, sure. But it's like, we're not in arranged marriage times out here. Like, what? We're not trying to grow to love somebody over a decade. Yeah. So that's crazy to me that women will sacrifice that much for, you know, a Birkin or a bag or a picture or a portrayal of a certain lifestyle, when in reality, like, especially with athletes, I'm like, bitch, you're alone a lot of the time. What that?
I was not prepared for like how much time I'd have by myself. Oh my gosh,
You're like,
so
this is
nuts.
me living like the lonely life. I don't know if I could do all that. And it is kind of funny because I think there's a lot of things, and again, I'm not married or, you know, with somebody that lives in the industry or that works in the industry, but I could imagine that there are things like that that surprise you, that you're just like, oh shit, like I didn't realize that, you know, X amount of months out of the year, they literally are gone and I don't see them and they can only talk to me a really stringent amount of time. So I'm like married to myself for this piece of time, you know?
Sure. That was a huge thing that, I mean, last year was my first year experiencing it. And then this year is my full, like, season to season going through it. And, it was so shocking, like, how different it is, because we have 6 months of being together every day. I mean, just
lovely. You're like lovebirds.
Just so loved up. It's amazing, and we're just together all the time. We can have breakfast together. Like, it's just so nice. We get to talk to each other, hang out, and all of the things we love to do. And then the other 6 months of the year, 6 a.m. his alarm goes off, and he's not home till like 8 or 9. And then he has like virtual meetings with his trainers to talk about his film, and then he's rewatching film. And I mean, he is in like a workaholic. He's a Virgo, so he's a workaholic.
A Virgo and a Sagittarius, everyone. Write that down.
Intense.
I know.
It's intense.
I know, yeah. But Earth and fire signs couples, let me say this, they are the power couples. Yeah. They are the Beyonce, Jay-Z's. Like, seriously, I don't know what it is. Every Earth and fire sign couple I know, and it doesn't matter like who is which component of it, is so powerful. Yeah. Like, it's so you're right, power couple vibes, and it is probably really intense.
It is, but
that is kind of crazy to think about. Like, 6 months out of the year where you're like, all right, and then even I'm sure after that he's like, bitch, I need to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired.
So like, I'm like, can we sit up and talk for like a little bit? And I get like 30 minutes of we're talking about our day, and then he's like starting to fall asleep. Or we'll watch like a show together, and I'm just like talking through the whole show. But then
you're like, I need to get as much time out of you as I can.
Exactly. Okay. But then like on his days off, we spend the entire day together. That's another thing that I was able to like realize about being with someone forever, is that he will absolutely make the time. So when he has the time, it's 100% devoted to making sure that he's putting an effort towards our relationship. That just because I have a ring on my finger and we have a home together doesn't mean that like you stop chasing your partner. And so he's absolutely taken that and executed it. One of the things that he has always said to me is that he promises to never become like complacent. He absolutely knows what he has, and he will not fuck it up.
Bitch, I ain't never gonna stop giving up on chasing you and loving you, which is the most important piece. Well, I love you. This has been amazing. Thank you for coming on Open Dialogue. Next time you come on, you're going to be Emily Ingram.
I will be.
Oh my gosh. Okay, whenever you're in Florida, bitch, I'm in Miami. Like, I will see you.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
As always, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, you can always follow us on all of our socials, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube at opendialogue.pod.